What is up guys, and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, what I'll be doing is discussing how you can gain 1,000 points per day or potentially even more than that in Season 8 Arena. I'll be discussing the updated point system and how you can play around it, as well as some various strategies from myself and pro players that you can use to maximize your point gain. If you go on to enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like on it and consider subscribing as well if you want to see more content just like this in the future. But with that said, and without further ado, let's get into today's video. So starting off this video, I want to go ahead and discuss the actual changes that have been made to the arena system. If you don't know, the preseason ended on September 28th, and Epic finally did surprise us with some major changes to the point system, which are going to impact the most optimal arena strategy, and that's what I'm going to cover here. So one major thing that Epic has done with the point system is they actually changed the elimination points based on game mode. So the new point system involves 20 points per kill in solos, a big increase in duos to 20 points per kill, and trios remains the same at 15 per kill. So with that said, you now get 20 points per solo kill, 40 points for each duo that you wipe, and 45 for each trio wipe. As well as that, Epic also made it so points are harder to get as you go up in division, with elimination points getting lower as you rank up. Specifically in solos, you're going to get 20 points per kill in Open League, 15 in Contender League, and only 10 in Champs, with placement points also dropping slightly. As well as that, the points to actually go up in division are even higher, with the points to reach Champs being 7,500 instead of 6,000. Also, bus fare has been slightly adjusted, with Division 7 having 50 bus fare instead of 40 like last season, and Division 10 was also bumped up from 70 to 80. And finally, the last change that Epic made to the arena system was actually adding a demotion system. So with this demotion system, hypothetically, if you hit Champions League but you start losing a ton of games and you go back under the point threshold, which is 7,500, then you actually end up back in Division 7. Now this may be interpreted as a good or bad change, it really depends on the individual player, but it's definitely something you're going to want to keep in mind. So overall, what Epic has basically done is try and make it a lot harder to reach champs. This is something that a lot of players have requested and kind of wanted for a while, so it's good to see them implement it, but it also might make it a lot harder for some people. But with that being the case, it still is definitely possible for most of you to hit champs if you do play your cards right. So with that said, the next thing I want to tell you might be pretty surprising for some of you guys, and that's actually the new best game mode in Arena. So as you may know, when it comes to specifically gaining points, in the past, solos has usually been the most optimal game mode. And then in Season 7, trios had a massive buff, which basically made it the most overpowered mode. And in this season, the best game mode for gaining arena points is actually going to be duos. If you think about it, duos is really good for a few reasons. First off, 20 points per kill in duos is seriously OP, and the ratio of kills to points is matched with solos. And obviously, wiping one duo as a team is much easier than wiping two players as a solo. That's kind of just the way it works. At the same time, while trios does give you more points per team wipe, it does give you less points per kill, and it's obviously important to keep in mind that wiping a duo as a duo is far easier than wiping a trio as a trio, and the 5-point difference between wiping a duo and wiping a trio really isn't too significant when you consider the benefits of duos. I guess this next part kind of comes down to opinion, but personally I find it a lot easier to keep everything in check when you're playing duos. In trios it's often really chaotic and kind of hard to keep track of everyone, but in solos it's also really easy to get bored if you're not talking with anyone, at least for me personally. So at least for me personally, duos is like that nice middle ground, even if you don't include the fact that it's now arguably the best game mode in terms of pure point gain as well. So with that said, Arena is relatively balanced this season in terms of game modes, but if you do have a solid player to play with, then the best game mode for gaining points is probably going to be duos. So moving into the juicy part of this video, next up we'll be discussing the most optimal playstyle for gaining points fast and hitting champs with the current point system. Now obviously, since I did call duos the most optimal game mode for gaining points, most of my playstyle tips in this video are going to be more geared towards duos. That's kind of what's on my mind, but anything that I do recommend should be useful for all game modes regardless. So with that said, as you already know, the elimination points for Open League, Contender League, and Champions League are now different from one another. Epic's primary idea with this was, since elimination points are lower as you go up in rank, lobbies are going to tend to be more stacked the more points you have, since the point system now rewards you a lot more for placement. But with that said, while the new point system definitely makes it a bit more preferable to go for placement, don't be afraid to fight as well. Keep in mind that while they're lower, the elimination points are still definitely there, and obviously getting kills can be a really important factor in placing higher in game, since it allows you to grab more loot, materials, and other things of that nature. With that said, there is quite a bit of variation in the most optimal playstyle depending on your specific skill set, as well as how many points you're at. So what I'm going to do now is basically just give you guys a general rundown of the strategy that you should use for each league. Obviously those include opens, contenders, and champs, and also how you can adapt your playstyle to your own skill set as well. Starting off with Open League, this is probably going to be the simplest one, and really you can pretty much just W key. There's no reason to worry about bus fare in any open division, so it's a pretty good opportunity to grab a bunch of kills and really just chill out. As well as that, Open League has full elimination points, so getting the most kills possible is typically going to be the best to gain as many points as possible, even if you're not the best player overall. And if you are watching this a few days or a few weeks into the season, then chances are just about every single high level player is going to be in champs or at least pretty high up in contenders. So with that said, you won't have to worry too much about running into any insane players. Overall, Open League is pretty much the place to just chill out and play the game like normal. Moving on to Contender League, this is where things get a little bit shaky. With lower elimination points, it's definitely harder to W key and continue going up in points, but ultimately it's really just going to come down to your skill level. Depending on how good you are, you could probably get away with W keying a little bit in the first division or two for Contenders League, but especially once you hit Division 7, you're probably going to want to back off, land a bit safer, and try to maximize your placement points. I do want you to keep in mind though that this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to camp. It's still perfectly viable to get a kill or two off spawn and maybe take 1 or 2 mid-game fights, but the general idea is that we're doing less of a W key style and more so just being careful rather than playing however we want. But overall, in Contenders League, you're really going to want to adapt your playstyle to how skilled you are at fighting. If you struggle a bit more in fights, especially against players around your level, then you might want to back off and kind of just play a bit more passive. But on the other hand, if you're pretty solid at fighting against Contender League players, then don't let the slightly lower elimination points stop you from playing for fights. Overall, in Contenders League, it's really just going to be about adapting your playstyle to your own skill set, and you should be good. Finally guys, Champions League is where things get extra complicated. Now to start, keep in mind that once you hit 7,500 points and you're in champs, you don't technically have any reason to continue playing arena. At the time of making this video, there's literally zero reason to reach Division 9 or 10 apart from being able to say you hit Division 9 or 10. But on the other hand, I know a lot of you guys like to play arena just for the sake of it, and you might want to grind out a bunch of points simply because you enjoy it. So with that said, in Champions League, things get a bit weird. While the elimination points are fairly low, there also isn't any pressure to hit champs like there is in Contenders League, so that's pretty much one of the main reasons Contenders tends to have even more stacked lobbies than champs. So even though the elimination points are low, you still might run into some W keyers since there's not that much to play for. In champs, you can either be one of those W keyers and simply play how you want, or you can try to play more optimally. If you want to maximize your point gain, then your best strategy for champs is definitely going to be to land fairly passive, preferably at a small POI or an unnamed spot, and just focus on getting stacked loot and materials. From there, you can honestly play it out like a cash cup game. What I mean by that is basically to only take fights when you have a reason to, and your main priority should really just be to survive into the end game and try to maximize your placement points. Basically, you're just going for the win instead of W keying. This is similar to the strategy of top level arena players like Adonis and Mars OW, where the main idea is basically to get stacked on loot and materials so you're ready to fight if you need to, or if you have a clean mid game with minimal fighting, then you're absolutely stacked and completely prepared for endgame. Overall, in champs this season, the players you run into are going to be much more skilled than previous seasons since Epic has made it much harder to reach. But if you do play your cards right, you focus on getting everything you need for a good game nice and early, and take fights intelligently, you should be pretty successful even though the lobbies are more difficult. But with all that said guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to gain 1,000 points per day in Fortnite Chapter 2 Season 8. Overall, if you simply learn the point system and optimize your playstyle and strategy to match it, you should be well on your way to hit champs and gain a ton of arena points very quickly. If this video did help you out, then be sure to drop a like on it and consider subscribing as well if you want to see more tips and tricks content just like this in the future. Only around 10% of the people watching my videos are actually subscribed, so if you do want to see more videos just like this one, then it would be greatly appreciated if you could hit that big red subscribe button. With that said though, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.